I love him. I love having his support, you know what I'm saying? His support is like very, very different from what I've had in the past, and how he speaks to me and stuff is very different. There we go. We deserve each other.
Something strange had clearly happened, because in a single moment, everything stopped making sense. Thousands of viewers were tuned in, watching Claressa Shields live on her stream. At first, nothing seemed out of place. She appeared calm and composed, smiling as she responded to comments and questions. Her tone was light, her demeanor relaxed, and her energy suggested that she was fully in control of the moment. To anyone just joining, it felt like a typical live session, engaging, friendly, and easygoing. Then, without warning, everything changed. It wasn't gradual. There was no build-up or subtle shift that viewers could point to in hindsight. It was immediate and jarring. 1 second she was smiling, and the next, her entire expression transformed. Her eyes darted quickly across the screen, as if she had just seen something unexpected. Her posture stiffened, and for a brief moment, she seemed completely frozen. It was the kind of pause that doesn't feel natural, the kind that makes people watching instinctively realize something is wrong. Right after that, a loud phone notification pierced through the stream. It was sharp enough to cut through the conversation and instantly grab everyone's attention. She glanced down at her phone, her expression tightening as she read whatever had appeared on the screen. There was a short pause, just long enough to feel heavy, before she quietly murmured something under her breath, barely audible through the microphone. "Oh wow," she said. And just like that, the stream ended. There was no goodbye, no attempt to explain, no effort to recover or brush it off. The screen simply went black, leaving thousands of viewers staring at their devices, confused and unsettled. It wasn't just the abrupt ending that caught people off guard. It was the emotion behind it. That single moment felt real, unfiltered, and impossible to fake. But what happened next is what truly sent social media into a frenzy. Within minutes, a blurry, shaky clip began circulating online. It appeared to have been filmed late at night, showing a man walking into a building. At first glance, it seemed like just another random piece of footage. The caption attached to it read, "Wait, doesn't that look like Papoose?" referring to Papoose. Initially, most people dismissed it. The internet is full of coincidences, lookalikes, and misleading clips. It didn't seem like enough to take seriously. But then, someone decided to take a closer look. The footage was paused, zoomed in, and enhanced. Details that weren't visible at first began to stand out. And suddenly, the tone of the conversation shifted. People stopped laughing. They started asking questions. Why would he be there? What was the context? And more importantly, why did the timing feel so precise? According to several anonymous accounts that began appearing online, the location in the video wasn't random. It was allegedly connected to Remy Ma. If that claim held any truth, the implications were hard to ignore. The exact moment Claressa's demeanor changed, the second her phone lit up, and the time the clip began circulating all seemed to align almost perfectly. Then came another so-called leak. This time, it wasn't a video, it was a screenshot. No names, no profile pictures, just a short exchange of messages. The text was brief, direct, and final. One line in particular stood out, and it was enough to ignite widespread speculation. People didn't just wonder anymore. They began trying to connect the dots. Was that the message she had seen? Was that the exact moment everything changed for her? Within an hour, social media had erupted. Viewers began taking sides, forming theories, and analyzing every second of the live stream. Reaction pages reposted clips in slow motion, focusing on the exact frame where her expression shifted. Her face was studied like evidence. In a courtroom. And the more people watched, the more they became convinced that what they had witnessed wasn't distraction. It was shock. Soon, whispers started to spread. At first, they were quiet, buried in comment sections and small threads. But they didn't stay that way for long. One anonymous source claimed that the notification she received wasn't just a message. It was a location pin. Another suggested it could have been a photo, possibly taken moments before the shaky video started making rounds online. If those claims were true, then this wasn't just secondhand information. She may have seen something unfold in real time. Meanwhile, both Papoose and Remy Ma remained completely silent. There were no statements, no denials, not even vague posts to calm the situation. Their silence only intensified the speculation. In situations like this, people expect some kind of response, even a simple dismissal. But the absence of any reaction made everything feel more serious. Then came another twist. A second video surfaced, filmed from a different angle. It showed two shadowy figures, unclear and impossible to identify with certainty, but enough to raise even more questions. If this was indeed a private meeting, it suggested a level of planning and intention that wasn't meant to be public. And yet here it was spreading across the internet. At this point, one thing became increasingly clear. Claressa's livestream didn't end randomly. It wasn't a technical issue or a moment of distraction. It felt like a reaction, an immediate, emotional response to something she had just discovered. From that moment on, the internet refused to let it go. Every detail was dissected. Every second was analyzed. Viewers replayed the clip over and over, searching for clues. Her smile fading, her eyes tightening, the sudden silence. It all pointed to a moment of realization captured live. Hashtags began trending, linking her name with both Papoose and Remy Ma, creating a narrative that people couldn't ignore. The situation had moved beyond curiosity. It had become a full-scale online investigation. Then, an anonymous post appeared with a timestamp that matched the exact second she ended her livestream. That detail changed everything. The timing of a man entering that building now seemed too precise to be coincidence. What initially looked like random speculation began to resemble a connected timeline. As more people examined the details, the pieces started to form a story, one that felt increasingly difficult to dismiss. Another leak followed. This time, it was what appeared to be a chat log. The messages were short, cryptic, and loaded with meaning. One line suggested that she had just discovered something shocking. Another hinted at tension, possibly even danger. The identities behind the messages remained unclear, but that didn't stop the internet from reacting. By now, the situation had escalated far beyond a simple livestream moment. It wasn't just about her reaction anymore. It was about what she might have uncovered. Insiders began speaking out. At first, their voices were barely noticeable, quiet comments, vague hints. But gradually, they became louder, and their claims began to spread. One source alleged that rumors of a private meeting between Papoose and Remy Ma had been circulating for weeks. According to them, it was meant to be discreet, low-key, carefully arranged, and completely hidden from public attention. No phones, no cameras, no leaks. But if that was the plan, it clearly hadn't worked. Because now the entire internet was watching. Then came one of the most dramatic developments yet, an audio clip. It was short and unclear, but it was enough to spark widespread reaction. The voice sounded familiar, and one line in particular began circulating everywhere. "You said you were done, so why are we even here?" If the clip was authentic, it suggested that this wasn't a random encounter. It pointed to unfinished business, unresolved emotions, and a situation that was far more complicated than it initially appeared. Suddenly, Claressa's reaction during her livestream made more sense. If she had seen proof, or heard confirmation, then her abrupt exit wasn't confusion. It was something deeper. Shock, disappointment, possibly even betrayal. Social media reactions shifted almost instantly. Curiosity turned into frustration, and frustration quickly turned into outrage. Questions flooded every platform. Why was he there? Why now? Why wasn't anyone addressing it? And yet, through all of this, the silence remained. No response from Papoose. No statement from Remy Ma. Nothing to clarify or deny the growing narrative. That silence spoke louder than any explanation could have. In situations like this, people expect someone to step forward and set the record straight. But when no one does, speculation fills the void, and often, it leans toward the worst-case scenario. Theories began spreading rapidly. Some believed it was a private, final conversation between two people with a complicated history. Others thought it pointed to something ongoing, something that hadn't truly ended. A few suggested that the secrecy and timing indicated something more deliberate. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. Nothing about the situation felt random. Then came yet another leak. A simple screenshot containing a single line of text. It was brief, but its implication was powerful. The message suggested that someone wasn't supposed to see what had been revealed. That detail shifted the focus entirely. Now, it wasn't just about what happened, it was about what had been hidden. By this point, one conclusion had become unavoidable. Claressa's reaction was real. It wasn't staged, exaggerated, or performative. No one could fake that kind of immediate, visible shift in front of thousands of live viewers. Whatever she saw affected her deeply. Rumors began suggesting that her reaction wasn't just shock, it was anger. Not only at what had happened, but at how long it might have been happening without her knowledge. If that was true, then everything seen so far was only the beginning. Because if she chose to speak openly, the situation could escalate even further. And then, just as people began to assume she would stay silent, she returned. No annoncement. No build-up. She went live again. This time, the tone was completely different. The calm, relaxed energy from before was gone. In its place was something more intense, more personal. She looked directly at the camera, her expression steady but firm, and delivered a single line that instantly shifted the narrative. I'm not about to be played with, not in real life, and definitely not in public. That statement changed everything. It moved the focus away from speculation and toward accountability. It suggested that whatever had happened wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was something she felt strongly about. Then, another piece of audio surfaced. A low-quality voice note, posted anonymously, claimed to reveal more of the story. The voice, believed by some to be Papoose, sounded calm but tired, acknowledging the situation without fully explaining it. I didn't want it to come out like this, the voice reportedly said. Another line hit even harder. You keep saying it's nothing, but you knew how it looked. If authentic, the exchange suggested that a private conversation had already taken place, one filled with tension and unresolved issues. Then, a second voice, believed to be Remy Ma, responded sharply, questioning whether the concern was about appearances or reality. That moment divided opinions almost instantly. Some people sided with Claressa, believing her reaction was justified. Others argued that the situation might be more complicated than it appeared from the outside. But regardless of where people stood, one thing was undeniable. The story had taken on a life of its own. Eventually, Claressa addressed the situation again, this time more directly. She looked into the camera and spoke with clarity and control. I gave respect until I realized it wasn't returned, she said. Then she added a line that quickly spread across every platform. I don't chase, I replace. There was no yelling, no chaos, just a calm, decisive statement that felt like both closure and a warning. At that moment, the dynamic shifted. She was no longer reacting. She was leading. Meanwhile, the silence from the others continued, leaving the public to interpret events on their own. And in the absence of clear answers, speculation continued to grow. One thing, however, had become clear. If the full truth ever comes out, this situation won't just remain internet drama. It will explode into something much bigger. For now, people are still watching, still analyzing, still waiting. Because this story isn't over. Not even close.